when you just throw bodies at it, you can't get any worse than this, is when you have a week 3 associate training a week 1 associate.
The blind leading the blind.
Right. 6 weeks is not a veteran.
Yeah.
The onboarding piece cannot be stressed enough.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jared.
Hi, I'm Melinda.
And welcome back to The Secret Life of Inventory. This is a show where we dive deep into the unseen world of inventory management, revealing the hidden mysteries that help businesses like yours optimize their workflow and succeed.
Today, our guest is a warehouse optimization expert. Please welcome Adrian Betts. Adrian is the founder of Xpandur, a consulting firm based in Atlanta that helps warehouses get the most out of their operations without adding headcount, investing in new equipment, or waiting for a major system overhaul.
Over the course of his career, Adrian has worked with mega corporations like UPS, Walmart, and Amazon, and today he works with businesses of all sizes using those same lessons and strategies. So he's worked at warehouses as small as 10,000 square feet all the way up to 2.8 million square feet, so he's actually really seen and done it all.
Get ready, because in this episode, we'll break down what's really slowing down your warehouse, uncover the hidden areas for improvement, and discuss why strong processes are the foundation for every future investment.
So thanks so much for being here, Adrian.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. All right, so let's get started. So Adrian, you've worked with a lot of major companies, and now you've gone off and you've started your own business, helping companies with their inefficiencies in their warehouse. So what made you kind of take that leap to start your own business? And, I know that warehouse inefficiency is maybe a niche category. So what made you kind of choose that as your core mission?
Well, solving these problems for companies is more fun than going into a company and doing the same thing every day for 40 years, and it's predictable. Right. So it's kind of like I like the chaos, or, like when all the leaves fall on the yard and you rake them up in a pile. Some people enjoy that. I happen to be one of those people. So why did I get into that? Because back in 2001, I was a year into college, and September 11th happened, and, wanted to be a pilot. Didn't do that. But they were starting to furlough pilots, pay cuts. The airline industry was bad. And I said, man, I need something that is more stable. So I branched out into all modes of transportation. They were outsourcing other industries. And I said, I need something that can't be outsourced. So no matter what, in order to get something delivered somewhere in America, it has to be done by somebody in America or wherever you are.
Right.
So that's why I choose the industry, and I choose to be a problem solver than just a status quo maintainer.
Yeah, awesome.
So as we mentioned before, you've worked with some big names like Amazon, Walmart, Target, UPS, and FedEx. What's one lesson from these large-scale operations that absolutely transfers to small or mid-sized warehouses?
Number one is you will never be immune from problems. So don't look at these big companies and think that they got it all figured out. If you actually go back and pay attention to the news, man, they make some big errors, and they're still there. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I will say will translate for sure is no matter how big your company is, no matter how great your average tenure is, you have to have bench depth. I've seen so many companies where one person, well, Jared's going on vacation, and nobody else in this 1,000-person company knows how to do what Jared does. Mm-hmm. So the company struggles until Jared comes back. Jared's frustrated because now he has a week's worth of work waiting for him.
Yeah.
And I've seen that at every single size company.
Mm.
What's one lesson that does not transfer?
Just because it works for them does not mean it will work for you. Even if you're the same size, they're a direct competitor. Mm. But even more so, like Walmart can do certain things. Like they need an excursion to move their family around. If you're a bachelor, you don't need an excursion. Just get you a two-seater or something, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to copy exactly what they do in order to get where they are. Every person has their own journey, and every company does too.
That's really well put. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about a challenge that many warehouses are facing right now. Let's say there's a growing business owner or a warehouse manager that comes up to you and they're like, things feel messy and we can't keep up. What's typically going on?
So I say you have to go slower to go faster. And they're going to say, well, I can't, we just need to do this stuff. I said, well, it's not going to work like that, because what's happening is people don't know what to do. And so in 10 hours, they will do 10 hours of work and end up having to reduce 6 hours of it because they didn't know what the process was.
Yeah.
So if you take an hour, 2 hours, even 3 on the front end and go slow, they're like, why are you moving so slow? I said, I'll tell you what, I can walk away and these people got it. I can go on vacation for a week and these people still got it. They know the access, they have the wherewithal, they have the know-how, and it's not just Jared. You have it as well. We have 2 or 3 other people that know that as well.
Can you break down what a process problem looks like on the floor? How does it show up day to day?
Oh man, this process problem. So we were rushing, and they said, well, it was vast value-added services. So we're just tagging the items, things like that, for business to business to get on the store shelves for this company. And they said we don't have time to validate the count before we VAS it. So we were just picking stuff, VASing the items, and then we'd figure out which quantities went to which order afterwards. And I said, okay, so they said we did all the orders, and I said, well, we're missing one. And in this stack of like 20 pallets, we validated the count for 1 order. And I said, that's a whole lot of stuff left. And it turns out it was a whole other order. But because we didn't take the time on the front end to say, let's move order 22 first, then order 23, then order 24, they were all mixed in together. And that's an example of the rework that I'm saying that we end up doing. So trying to go faster doesn't always work. It's literally, I mean, your tires go very fast when you're stuck in the mud, but you're not going anywhere.
That's true.
Good analogy.
What are the early warning signs that something deeper is going wrong?
Oh, wow. So this same process, people would say, I have this extra, I have leftovers. If you're doing what the system is telling you to do, there should not be leftovers, right? So if you order a pizza, 8 slices, why do I have a 9th slice?
Yeah.
Something's wrong. So the first time that happens, you have to address it, and we'll probably get to it later, but the way to address it isn't, oh, you did something wrong. It's, hey, I'm just trying to find out why I have extra. Hey, you were the person who picked this. Can you walk me through this process? You know, you can go through their pick history and things like that, but you have to stop it the very first time you see it. Otherwise, you're going to end up like we did with a trailer worth of putbacks.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good signal that things aren't going right.
Yeah.
So as an expert, say you walk into a warehouse, you have 20 minutes to kind of look around. What is the first thing that you notice, and what else are you kind of looking out for while you're there?
Oh man, I love that question. All the way back in my FedEx day, they said the most important box in the warehouse is the one that stopped moving. So it's supposed to come off the truck, go up the belt, get sorted, and go to the truck, and then it's going to go out the door. If that package stops anywhere in between, that's a big problem.
The unknown.
Right. So that if you just go out to the floor and stop, don't move, and just observe from a fixed standpoint, you'll see everybody that isn't moving. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of stopping that certain people are doing, or everybody stopping here. Hey, I got a question. Why is everybody stopping here? What's the issue? Most people are trying to do their best, right? And so we have to see when there's something in their way, find out what that is, and remove that for them.
Awesome. So, and what about like common problems that like a lot of operators are they stop noticing? Like, what are the blind spots, do you think?
Trash on the floor.
Oh.
Like seriously. But if that comes down to what you enforce.
Right.
When I say enforce, what you enforce is not a negative word. It's what you instill in everybody. Says, hey, we have enough trash cans. Let's go ahead and pick that up. And it goes to like, even I 5S'd the area, and I said, okay, I made sure to pick a very beautiful palette to make this square with. So I don't understand why the palette is outside of the square, right? And so if you walk by that, one pallet being out of the square, that's going to end up to every pallet being misaligned enough. And if every pallet is just off enough, kind of like parking spaces, if if enough people park over the line, you start to lose capacity. It's the same thing in the warehouse.
Right, incrementally shifting everything in
It
the
adds
warehouse
up.
over. Yeah, for
I hate
sure.
when that happens.
So, say you meet a founder and they say, I know that our warehouse is really inefficient, but we just don't have time to fix it. Like, what would you say to someone like that?
I'm going to go back to the SOPs, and it's going to come up like recurring. I've walked into plenty of places. They said, we have to do this. I said, what are we doing? Does anybody know? And it's, no, we just move this and move it over there. And then you start, if you take 15 minutes and observe, you say, oh, okay, I see what we're doing. Stop bringing this. Right? Let us get what we have in front of us. Let's reset something. Let's reset a playing field. And then let's do, what's the next order? Okay, let's do that one. Okay, what's the next 5 orders? Okay, where's a whiteboard? Where's some markers? Let me say, guys, here's our workload for the day. Or here's our workload to break. Here's our workload to some stopping point. And that gives everybody enough foresight to execute without me having to micromanage.
Yeah.
And in that time frame, I can say, okay, now show me how to look beyond today for the whole week. And now we can actually start to plan and feed the monster instead of it just eating all of our food.
Yeah, like an agenda for the day and the week. So when warehouse operations turn messy, the first instinct is usually to hire more people, move into a bigger space, or buy new software. But in many cases, like you mentioned, the real issue is the process. So from your experience, what does a people problem look like versus a process problem? How do you tell the difference?
So people, this is a little blended. When you just throw bodies at it, you are going to end up with this. This is like the peak. Can't get any worse than this. Is when you have a week 3 associate training a week 1 associate. Right. So,
The blind leading the blind.
right. So you say,
Oh yeah.
you've been here 6 weeks. You're a veteran. You should know this. 6 weeks is not a veteran.
Yeah.
So it takes 30. The onboarding piece cannot be stressed enough. And again, that's one of those go slower to go faster.
Yeah.
So onboarding is like trying to explain to somebody how to make a bowl of cereal, but they've never seen a kitchen, a bowl, or cereal. So you have to be very specific. But once they do it and get the touches, over time, they will get, the speed will come once they master the technique. And you have to be able to weather that storm, because I know it's tough. Phones ringing off the hook. People are saying, this should have been here already. But if you don't take that time, you could take the time for the first 30 days, or you can deal with fixing those problems for the next 30 months.
Right. So space is obviously a big issue for a lot of growing businesses, and I think a lot of companies, they jump to the, let's just get a new warehouse and that will solve their problems. And I think you probably more than anyone know that that's obviously not the case. So, what does poor space, efficiency actually look like in practice?
So poor space efficiency is when you have something that moves a lot at like one of the furthest corners of the building.
Right.
So if you think about a grocery store, their fastest movers are in the back corners of the store because they want you to walk by everything, so you look at everything and buy more stuff. And the warehouse is the opposite. You want your fastest movers the closest to the loading doors. Hey, I got to move 10,000 of these. Boom, boom. It's 10 feet.
Right.
Another one is, if you want to see how efficient or inefficient you are with your pick path, just go out there and pick for a couple hours. It'll take you about 10 minutes to realize it. It's like, man, this is horrible. Why do I put this here? And so you say, we need to redo this, and then but that's always a healthy gut check.
Right. So way more about like the flow than the square footage.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Can you share an example where a business thought they needed a larger facility, but then you helped them maximize their existing space?
Absolutely.
Like, this is what I do.
So I'm going to give an example. This company had $100 million in inventory, and $5 million of it was obsolete, meaning it had been written off by finance. They said, we should throw this in the trash. Sales is like, I still think I could sell it to somebody. I said, look, if you would have sold it to somebody, you would have done it by now. Right? They said, hey, get some brushes and brush the dust off of it. I said, no, we're not going to do that. So there was 25 million that was excess. So if our target was to have 9 months of inventory, the minimum is 6 months, the max is a year. For all the product we had greater than 1 year's worth of sales volume on hand, that was $25 million.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I said, so you made your revenue for the year off of only 70% of your inventory. I'm not saying don't spend $100 million on inventory, but if you spend this $30 million on product that turns within a year, how much more space did you get back? And you get more revenue for the same dollar spend because it's going to turn within the calendar year.
Right.
Now, 30 million is always going to be 43% of 70 million. Right?
Yeah.
So if I tell you you can get 43% more revenue simply by buying something that is going to be consumed within a certain time frame, who wouldn't take that?
Yeah, I agree. So as far as software, this is something that's actually really relevant for our listeners. You know, a lot of them, maybe they're thinking about getting some software. Maybe some of them are actually shopping around, and then others, maybe they're implementing, right? So in your experience, what would you say are some processes that companies really need to dial in before they decide that it's time to take that step into software where they'll just end up like digitizing their mess?
You need to be able to have some simple systems. So I've been in a warehouse where we didn't have any scan guns.
Oh, wow.
So we would do all the receiving, just typing it in, and we would put it in locations, but it wasn't scanned anywhere.
Right.
So how do you know where everything is? And we had several different clients. So sometimes I would sort it by SKU number, numerically. And if it was alphanumeric, I'm sorting it alphabetically. And then there was one that was alphanumeric, but they had 3 different sizes. They had a 1 ounce, an 8 ounce, and a 32 ounce. So I had A through Z 1 ounce, A through Z 8 ounce, A through Z 32 ounce. So when somebody has to pick, the system, the process makes sense to them. Okay, this is alphabetical order. 1Z, what's that mean? Oh, 1 ounce. Right. 8Z, 8 ounce. Something that's very simple and straightforward that somebody doesn't have to be a solutions architect to understand.
Right, right. Yes, we actually hear that a lot from our people on the podcast. Cleaning up your data is like the most important thing to do. So it's always echoed. I love to hear that. You know. So what about when it's time to actually buy that software? You know, what would you say? And this is for our product team more than anybody, I think. What would you say are some of like those core capabilities or features that are really, really important and must-haves in inventory software?
Oh man, capacity. Management, like how much space am I going to take up in my warehouse when I do this? Also, this milk is about to go bad. Like if you set your min-max and your target on hand for inventory, you need to have flags that say, hey, I'm starting to come up on a lot of product that is taking up space because we haven't sold it. Either we donate, discount, or destroy it, but we need to do something. And that's usually 90 days out, or like in that example, 6, 9, 12 months. At 9 months, as soon as something hit the 10th month, I say, all right, guys, you need to do something by the 12th month. We can't let anything go 12 months in one day. So if a system knows when that product came in, it knows how long it's been there.
Right.
Yeah.
It needs to start saying, hey, you're about to start losing money on this. And just say, show me everywhere I'm about to lose money. And you say, okay, sales, marketing, you said this was going to sell. What happened with the market? And if it got soft, it got soft. That's fine. But then that gives you the option to do the discount and at least get something out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Worst case, you have to donate it. Well, actually, that's probably not the worst case. Somebody's getting it.
Right.
The worst case is probably just destroying it or discarding it.
Right.
Because that's just a complete waste.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
gotta remember that. The 3 Ds: donate, discount, and destroy.
Yeah. 3 Ds.
3 Ds.
Well, that's good. inFlow has expiration dates, so you know I'm just over here like taking notes, and we're good. We're good.
Okay, Next, let's dive deeper into space and layout because this is an area where small changes can have a surprisingly big impact. So, for those who don't know, can you explain what is slotting and why does it matter so much for efficiency?
So slotting is basically putting product where it makes the most sense for optimal flow. And so if you think about if you're going to make hot dogs, right? So ketchup, mustard, relish. Hopefully those are all on the condiment aisle, right? It would be very inefficient for them to be at 3 different parts of the warehouse.
Right.
So that's an example of being efficient. And I could tell you one time they got me on the impulse aisle in a grocery store with the s'mores. They put the marshmallows, the Hershey's, and the graham crackers all at the end cap. And I said, man, they made it too easy for me to buy this. It was just too efficient of a decision to make, so we ended up having s'mores at night.
So, when a business is thinking about where to put things, you kind of mentioned it, but what should they be thinking about?
What's the closest point to outbound? First and foremost, pay all the dividends, pay all your taxes and dues on the receiving travel time up front, right? So let's say this was a rectangle, the big warehouse, and this is the long way. If my inbound is on this side and my outbound's on that side, when I take product off of the truck, I want to get it all the way down here as close to this door as possible and fill my aisles up from here going this way. So I've seen some people say, oh man, we're crushing it. Inbound's crushing it. You come right off the truck and put it all right here. And then you lose all of it because you pick one pallet all the way to the door, all the way back.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Doubling.
that's an example right there.
So is there a quick way of doing like a slotting audit if you don't, say you don't have the resources to bring in a consultant? Like what would something like that look like?
Well, there are 2 very good ways. The first one is if you go out yourself and you can see what's covered in dust. A full pallet, hasn't been touched, dust. If the product's turning, it doesn't have time to get dust. That's one. The second way is in peak season. I love this because everybody comes out to the floor to help. It's all hands on deck. Everybody rolls up their sleeve. And there are 2 types of people in life. There are people who like to sit in one spot and the work comes to them. Those are packers.
Right.
And then there are people like, hey, look, I want to move about.
Yeah.
Those are the people that say, I'm going to put you in picking. And within, whether it's the picker or the packer, but we're talking about picking, in about 10 minutes, they're going to say, this sucks, this is uncomfortable, this could be better. How long have you guys been dealing with this? And I say, we've been telling you this for like a whole year. But I'm glad you see it. But if you really want to see where the inefficiencies are, go through the process once or twice.
Yeah.
You'll feel it.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. So beyond slotting, are there any other like aspects of warehouse, efficiency that kind of, or warehouse layout, I should say, that really, impact the overall efficiency?
So again, I would talk about the excess and obsolete, because what happens is if you have, 10 pallet slots and 4 of them aren't moving, at some point you need to take those out and you may be able to condense your footprint. So in Q4, you're going to need up to 110% of your warehouse space, which is where people get creative and virtually create aisles and locations, and you'll see that. And then in Q1 or whenever off-peak is, you may only need 65% of your warehouse space, and your footprint should condense to the amount of warehouse space you're actually using. And if you do it correctly, you can use the customer buying patterns to empty out your warehouse. Hey, the stuff that people are going to buy in Q4 is out here. Right. So as Q4 goes on, and we're back to Q1, the staple stock stuff, I walk into Q1 with all my stuff in the tightest footprint. And I don't have to use labor to move that inventory.
Right, okay.
The customers did.
Right, okay.
That's a good way to think about it.
For sure.
Yeah. So how should a warehouse think differently about efficiency when volume is volatile or seasonal? What breaks first during these peak seasons?
The people are going to break first if you do it incorrectly. But the people break first when the plan breaks. So if you look at peak season from Thanksgiving to Christmas, it's about 4 to 5 weeks. You will get 1 extra week's worth of work from Black Friday to Cyber Monday.
Oh, gosh.
7 extra days of work.
Right.
So here's a very structured way of how we schedule everybody for peak season. Yes, there's plenty of time for overtime, but how you do it is going to make or break whether it's chaotic or comfortable. So, week 1, you're going to work 2 extra days of overtime. The second week of peak, you're going to work 2 extra days of overtime. The third week, you're going to work 1 extra day of overtime. The fourth week, you're going to work 1 extra day of overtime. That's 6 of the 7 days. Mm-hmm. And then voluntary. And that covers your 7 days. That's that tail that you get in peak season. They say work your tail.
Right.
And that's how you work a 7-day tail over the 4 to 5 weeks from Black Friday to Christmas.
Okay. It's very practical. I like
Yeah.
that.
So if you had to bet on one area where smaller warehouses are quietly losing the most time, which one would it be? Do you think it'd be receiving, replenishment, picking, packing, or handoffs between teams? Which one would you check first?
If they're large enough to have multiple teams, it's going to be handoffs between teams. If they're not, it's going to be replenishment. Mm-hmm. And most fulfillment companies, they pick from the ground level, and the replenishment comes from the B level or above. They call it reserve. So think when you go to Home Depot, every human in there is getting stuff from right here. And then you have the forklifts and somebody has to bring that stuff down. I've seen this at 3 different places where we work 7 days a week in fulfillment, but the replenishment team only works Monday through Friday. But when do most people do their shopping? On the weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So these floor locations are getting picked away on the weekend, and there's no replenishment team. So now the orders that are supposed to go out on Saturday and Sunday, they start to become late because I said, well, why didn't you get the product out if it was in the building? I said, because it's up in the air and we don't have any replenishment people. I've seen that at 3 different fulfillment companies.
Oh, geez. Okay, so it's a common theme, apparently. So something a lot of managers struggle with, is something that a lot of guests actually come on and talk about, is getting that buy-in from employees. Because I mean, you can change those processes, you can update your warehouse layout, get all the fancy equipment and software and everything. But how do you actually make it so that your employees stick with the processes? And how do you get them, especially if they've been working there for a long time? They might think that the way that they've been doing it for all these years is the most efficient. So how do you get that buy-in? How do you make sure that those processes stick?
The very first thing you have to do is introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is you have to know who is on your team. You have to create the roster. And then you assign everybody a very specific task within the process, and then you show them that. So when you guys come in and I say, hey, you go do that, those are the operations that struggle. Right? So I had a project where it was just Q4, and 500 people got brought in the month of October. They flew in 30 managers from the support team because they couldn't hire in a timely manner. So we're getting waves and waves and waves of people. And they would say, hey, Adrian, can you take these 40 people? Sure. So the first thing I say is, my name is Adrian. We're going to introduce you to the managers. Here are the managers. This is the function. This is the department. I said, now, throughout the day, you may get moved around to another function. Tomorrow, come back right here. You may get sent to another account. Tomorrow, come back here. You may get sent to another planet. Tomorrow, come back here. So part of the buy-in is giving them that stability, because people don't like being bumped around every single day. Number one, they never have an opportunity to get good.
Yeah.
And then number two, they get lost in the sauce. They feel mistreated. And next thing you know, you say, hey, I haven't seen them in a while. And then their device is just sitting on a box, and that's why that order is late.
For managers listening, what's the most important habit to build to prevent operations from drifting back into chaos?
You have to interact with your people. And it took me a while to get this, right? I used to be one of those, the numbers, you pass or fail, write up, sign here, if you do this 2 more times. Mm-hmm. But it really boils down to nobody can it's actually harder to get a complete 0 on a test than a perfect 100. Mm-hmm. Nobody is getting everything wrong. So you say, okay, here's what went well, and here's what we need to work on. Mm-hmm. Let's go through this a couple of times. You got it? I'm going to do it 2 or 3 times with you. 4th, 5th, 6th time, I'm going to stand back. 7th, 8th, 9th, I'm going to be a little bit further.
Until you're not even in the building.
Right. And then you kind of go to the next person, the next department, the next function, the next whatever. But you have to pick a place to start, but that's how you do it.
Like that.
Yeah. So if you were to rank the 3 categories, people, space, and software, what order would you recommend focusing on first?
People, for sure. Great. I've seen places that have phenomenal software.
Yeah.
But if you don't take the time to teach the people, doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like putting a tire on a car but not putting air in it. Space is how you manage a space, because you can manage space without software. Mm-hmm. And I have this conversation with procurement. They say, well, I just know I need to buy this much so we don't run out. I said, well, how many pallets is that? They said, I don't care. And I'm like, well, I kind of need to know. Mm-hmm. And so they have a job. I understand the direction they're given. Don't run out, and procure at the greatest benefit to us. Mm. So sometimes they'll say, yeah, I got like 52 gallons of milk. You said you drink a gallon of milk each week, so I just got 52 gallons of milk all at once. I said, why? like most of it's going to go bad before I get to drink it. So I have that conversation with procurement. It's not that I'm saying, no, don't buy 52 gallons of milk. It's how.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then from there, we can use a software that says, okay, well, it's just me most of the year consuming 1 gallon of milk a week. And then here comes the holidays where all the family's coming over, cakes, pies, cookies, whatever. But the milk consumption may go up. But you have that software that can forecast, and the one that can look back and say, well, here's what you did last year. Here's how much your milk intake increased last year when everybody came for Christmas. So you should probably expect the same this year. Plus everybody's growing, the little ones. So is there a year-over-year increase? Or, hey, somebody moved out the house, or is there a year-over-year decrease? So that's when the software comes into play at the very end.
Right.
But software hasn't been around that long, and moving stuff around has.
Yeah, that's fair play. Yeah, absolutely. So now when it comes to actually expanding your business, what would you say are some of those, signals that it's time to transition? Obviously sometimes you can be as efficient as possible, but when do you decide that it's time to hire more people, get a bigger space and, maybe adopt new software?
So there are people that are at the company in other departments that I rely on, like sales and marketing. They're going to say, hey, we crushed it. We exceeded our sales target by 30%. That is great, and I'm glad you let me know, because HR needs to know that. I need to know that. My IT department, do we need to get 30% more scanners? Right? So what happens is when those things that communication falls through the gaps, you see that the operations team, HR, IT, you end up with the need for 30 more people, but you were unprepared for that. And companies can collapse under their own success if they are unprepared and that communication is lacking.
So I want to end off kind of with some practical takeaways for our listeners today. So say that you're a small business and you're kind of managing like maybe a small to medium-sized warehouse. What is one thing that you can do this week to help kind of identify those, inefficiencies in your operation?
Go through every process at least once. And it's okay to be scared, because if you're scared and you're the owner of the company, what do you think your people are?
Yeah.
So but you'll also have an understanding
Mm-hmm.
and say, wow, this isn't that bad. And then you can go out there, and when you check on people, you're not going out there because you got a phone call and a customer is yelling at you.
Right.
You say, okay, let me go spend some time with them and walk them through the process, see if they have any questions. And you may even have some time to talk to them about some things outside of work and get to know who that person is. They're just a human.
Right.
So do not be afraid to go out there and go through your processes of your company. You don't have to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to have a general understanding of it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, how better to know your company than to actually do all
Yeah.
of the jobs yourself, right? And what about like metrics? So I know that a lot of companies, we actually just ran a survey recently, and it was kind of shocking to see how few metrics companies are tracking, like order accuracy, for example, only like, I think 70% were tracking that. But other than that, it was like, fill rate, only half companies were tracking it, which is, I found crazy, and things like even space efficiency was actually the lowest. So that's something you might find interesting. So as far as KPIs are concerned, what would you say, are 2 to 3 KPIs that are really great indicators to kind of show the health of your warehouse operation?
Number one's going to be cost per carton or cost per transaction or whatever. Of course, space utilization.
Yeah.
Space utilization is huge. Then there's the quality. Like how many of these are going out right the first time? And there's this thing called defects per million opportunities, DPMO. And essentially the goal is to get 99.6 or 99.96% of things right. So that means if you have 1 million customers and you make 4,000 of them mad, you're doing okay.
Okay.
Or if you have 1,000 customers and you make 4 of them mad, you're doing okay. So cost per carton, capacity, and what was that last one I just said?
DP.
Quality.
Yeah.
It's a quality indicator. Quality
Defects
indicator.
yeah.
Defects per million orders.
Yeah. And what about, is there a metrics that like leaders maybe obsess a little too much over? And is there one that they kind of should, ignore, but they should pay a little bit more attention to?
Yeah, it's the one they should pay attention to is the mode mix. And the one that they should pay less attention to is just basic expectation. And so the difference is the average temperature in Atlanta is 72 degrees. But it is not 72 degrees in Atlanta in June. It's much hotter. And then in the wintertime, December, it's a lot colder. So the common expectation, let's say it's 100%, that's assuming that you're handling, the portable printer behind you, a very standard, easy to handle box. But what happens when it's lawn and patio season and you're dealing with Adirondack chairs and big bags of mulch? For the same effort, you're generating less output. And then Halloween candy, you can grab 10 boxes at a time. So that is how we can, during the lawn and patio season, somebody could be busting their hump and only running a 68%. And you could say, you know what? You're doing outstanding. And the metric Flex Budget will measure that. They said he ran a 68% to average, but based off of what they were handling, they ran 100%.
Right.
And on the flip side, when people get gravy freight and they can do 15 hours of work in 10, here's how you can coach them when they say, well, I got my 10 hours for the day. I'm just going to sit for another 3. I said, no, you're not. I said, the behavior that you're managing is downtime. And so I just need you to stay moving and not look at just making the average number, because what happens is you say, how come you always come around when I miss my numbers, but you never come around when I exceed? And I want you to exceed when the gravy is there. You put that away, because you're going to have a day where you are 3 hours short, and that 3 hours that you were ahead offsets it overall.
Right.
So
right.
Mode mix is more important than the average.
Okay.
And for businesses that are just starting to get serious about their operations, maybe they've been doing things informally up until now, where do you tell them to start?
you hit the nail on the head. You said if they're doing it informally, it's probably a Post-it note with some handwritten numbers. It's scribble scrabble. It's chicken scratch. So even if it's, I say you have to document your SOPs electronically. So I've seen many handwritten SOPs. I've seen handwritten maps of warehouses.
Oh.
A line this way, it says spoons, forks, dishes, and that's it, right? So you have to put some structure to it and put it in a format that if this piece of paper vanishes or I put it in the washing machine, I don't lose that knowledge. I can get it right back tomorrow.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much, Adrian, for being here today, sharing all those great insights with us.
Thanks so much, Adrian. We learned a lot. And before we let you go, where can our listeners go to find you and stay connected with you?
I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I've been posting every day for several years now.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple of YouTube shorts here and there, a
Yeah.
little bit of Instagram. I'll get back into the other platforms, but right now, LinkedIn is my bread and butter.
Nice. Everyone, be sure to follow Adrian on LinkedIn, and you can also check out his business, Xpandur, at xpandur.com to stay updated with his work.
And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. Make sure you follow us on, wherever you get your podcasts, and we're going to keep bringing you great episodes with guests like Adrian, give you some practical insights that you can take away for your business.
Thanks again, everyone, and
Thanks,
we'll
love.
see you in the next one.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.